that occur. I see them on my feed all the time. The mischaracterizations from the pro-Palestinian side.
I'll be honest with you about this, Robbie. The reason why it kind of, like, if I'm really honest, it rings hollow if it only tends to come up. Your articulated frustration, I'm not talking about what's in your heart and soul, but your articulated frustration with these things tends to come up as a response to me bringing up that there's been some miscarriage of media or censorship or something like that. And if I only speak out against a mass murder, an ethnic cleansing, these kinds of tragedies, when someone else puts it in front of my face and it's like, well, do you, it feels empty. I don't know, it feels like.
What she's talking about is something I've talked about for years on my channel, and it's basically the fake condemn. I actually don't condemn something. I'm actually okay with it. But if you corner me in a conversation, I will verbalize, oh, I condemn whatever it is. Doesn't matter, because it doesn't mean anything. You check my social media, you won't see me saying negative things or, expressing outrage about that thing. I'm not going to post about it. I'm not going to initiate about it in general. But if you corner me, I'll pretend to care and say, no, I condemn that thing, right? Because you actually don't condemn it, right? You're being dishonest, bad faith actor. And that's what she's saying, basically, that Robbie is doing, and I agree with her, right? This is a classic fake condemn. You're not going to see on Robbie's timeline in social media him talking about the atrocities happening in the Gaza Strip, right? You probably see him talking a lot more about people saying from river to the sea, right? He's more concerned about words than he is about bloodshed, and that's a really difficult position to defend. For Robbie to be honest, he has to admit to the audience that he does not care about the slaughter of women and children and babies, right? He has to admit that. He will never want to admit that. That would be a very bad look. So he has to bend himself in pretzels to pretend as if that's not his position, right? That's why a lot of what he says doesn't make any sense. Pay attention.
Is this an ethnic cleansing, these kinds of tragedies, when someone else puts it in front of my face and it's like, well, do you, it feels empty. I don't know. It feels like, is this something that you're really focused on, motivated by prioritizing? Because I know that you'll on your own bring up something that happened on a college campus. On your own, you obviously have an urge to want to talk about how offensive that is to your sensibility. And the impression is that one cannot help but take away the impression that your sensibility is more affected by the idea of an 18-year-old on a college campus saying, I think Hamas are freedom fighters, than the images of 15,000 people and the confirmed reporting from international organizations and the death toll of 15,000 people, the overwhelming majority of whom are innocent, having their lives lost with the complicity of our government.
I don't think it would be fair.
Yes, Robbie, Mr. Libertarian Robbie, is more concerned with free speech, right? Not saying he's saying that they shouldn't have the freedom to say it, but just that he's more bothered by their free expression of their support for the Palestinians or even Hamas. I have yet to hear anyone supporting Hamas, right? But I hear a ton of people saying that others support Hamas. That should tell you something. Why is it that whenever I hear about support of Hamas, it's always with someone who's trying to shut down a conversation, right? They're having a debate, and for some reason, they don't want to engage with the person on their actual positions. So they try to shut them up, right? Try to silence their speech by going and smearing them and saying, you support Hamas, right? You are an anti-Semitist. I don't know why that came out weird, but that's what they're trying to do, trying to shut you down rather than engaging with your points.
For anyone to take away
and the death toll of 15,000 people, the overwhelming majority of whom are innocent, having their lives lost with the complicity of our government.
I don't think it would be fair for anyone to take away from what I have to say that there's like a lack of sympathy for the deaths of the Palestinians, given how many times do I have to say that I don't want to fund what they're doing. I wish they would not do what they're doing.
Notice how, by his own words, he's validating the very thing that he's trying to counter, right? So he's making a position that people should, first of all, he's not saying that that's not the case. Notice his choice of words. He's not saying that people are wrong if they think that I don't care about the slaughter. He's saying that people shouldn't get that impression, right? His issue is people getting that impression, as opposed to the fact that impression is false, right? I don't want you to think this about me, right? As opposed to what you think about me is incorrect, right? Then the first thing he brings up is we shouldn't be funding it. Think about this for a second. If he really cares about the slaughter of these innocent civilians, do you think the first thing out of his mouth would, instead of condemning or having an issue with the slaughter of civilians, his first thing, would it be the allocation of the funds to support this? Right? I mean, think about that for a second. So there's a guy who's going around raping women, right? And we talk to somebody and we say, doesn't this bother you that this guy is going around raping women? And he says, you should never get the impression that I'm okay with this, right? First of all, I don't appreciate that some of the money he uses to rape these women actually comes from my donations. Like, I don't appreciate, like, think about how ridiculous that sounds. You want people to believe you really care about the women getting raped, but the first thing that comes to mind is the money. The money. So again, it almost seems like the problem is not that he actually doesn't care about this stuff. His concern, there's a pattern, seems to be he's concerned about what people think about him, right? First thing, you shouldn't think that about me, right? And then he's concerned about his tax dollars, right? Because by his tax dollars being used for this, it's associating him with this atrocity, right? So on both fronts, he's concerned about himself. I don't want people to think that I don't care about these civilians, and I don't want my money being used for this because that links me to something that is really atrocious, right? And I'm actually okay with that thing, and I don't want people to realize that by but it's your money going to use it. So I'm saying no, I don't want my money to be as I focus on that. These are the talking points that I want to bring up first over me starting with the most critical thing. Who cares whose money is used for this, right? While babies are being slaughtered, who cares whose money? That's a valid point, right? But the first concern is for the babies being slaughtered, no? Right? First, we have an issue with the babies being slaughtered, and then perhaps we are concerned with, and on top of that, our money is being used. But no, Robbie's concerned about himself.
I don't think there's any hope the deaths of the Palestinians, given how many times do I have to say that I don't want to fund what they're doing. I wish they would not do what they're doing. I don't think there's any hope.
This is another thing that people do who don't actually care about something. So it's like people who are right-wing biased about January 6th, right? They can't even utter the words about what happened, right? They'll say that thing that they did some bad stuff. I heard somebody say the antics on January 6th and stuff like that. They can't say things like attacking police, the violence, anything that's too graphic. They don't want to say it. They want to sort of, he passed away. He didn't die, he passed away, right? Antics. Not violence, right? Not putting police in hospital. Antics, bad stuff. I don't agree with the stuff that happened, right? So here he is. He says, let's listen to him again.
For this situation, the deaths of the Palestinians, given how many times do I have to say that I don't want to fund what they're doing.
I don't want to fund what they're doing. He doesn't have to use the word genocide, right? That's not the only way to describe it. But the problem is, I'm pretty sure he can easily find very aggressive words to use against people who are saying from the river to the sea, right? I'm sure they're idiots, they're this, they're that, right? He'll be very, very, aggressive and concise talking about those people, right? He'll be very aggressive about, what happened on October 7th. This is horrific, this is whatever. But when it comes to what's being done to the Palestinians, it's stuff, what do you say?
Not do from what I have to say that there's like a lack of sympathy for the deaths of the Palestinians, given how many times do I have to say that I don't want to fund what they're doing.
Doesn't want to fund what they're doing. First he says the deaths of the Palestinians, right? Deaths, right? Passed away, right? So this is how you can tell someone's true beliefs, right? Is Robbie really bothered by what's happening to the Palestinians? Clearly not, right? And he's all of the markers are there for when someone actually doesn't care about something and they pretend to, right? He wants to say passed away, right? And he wants to say,
I wish they would not do what they're doing. I don't think there's
not do what they're doing. He can't even say the words, right? He so doesn't have a problem with it that he doesn't even want to articulate what they're doing or what, he just wants to keep it nice and soft and right, because he realizes how bad this is, right? But he doesn't really care about it, right? So he doesn't have that energy to really be aggressive in how he talks about it.
Hope for this situation to stop, given that Israel has total support for doing this, their government wants to do it, and Hamas wants a fight and has no intention of surrendering or ending this conflict, and the people of Palestine, to the extent they have any political will, essentially support violence against Israel. So there's going to be this battle, and it's going to happen, and it's terrible to watch, and I wish it wouldn't. I wish they would accept some kind of Western liberal democracy, multi-state, whatever solution. I hope everyone can get their own state. I'm for individual freedom and not being trod over or oppressed. That's just totally naive, given what the two sides in the conflict actually want.
Yeah, well, there's an absence of, even if you think that something is unlikely or even futile because of the state of the world and public opinion in various parts of the world. I'm just explaining to you what I think the observation is. Statements of what you think would be morally correct is what's missing.
Okay, I think it'd be morally correct for...
But wait a minute, I gotta say that I do sometimes think that the libertarian perspective, which focuses so specifically on what is getting funded, does a really neat in-round of...
Notice that? Very good. She's very good. She picks up on that as well. Focus on the funding, not on the atrocity.
But wait a minute, I gotta say that I do sometimes think that the libertarian perspective, which focuses so specifically on what is getting funded, does a really neat in run around ever having to take a position on what kind of justice requires. And when we're talking about an international law framework, it's not just about, well, America's not funding it anymore, so who cares? We're members of an international community. Whether or not you think those organizations do a good job or not, the International Court of Justice, the UN, whatever it is, have a responsibility to make those kind of determinations about the ethics and morals of the world we want to live in, not just should everybody stop funding something. And I do think that's part of why there's this dissonance.
Well, it's very easy to affirm that ideally what should happen is the Israelis should stop bothering the Palestinians and the Palestinians should stop bothering the Israelis.
Well,
but they want to bother each other.
But deeper, Robbie, like...
I like that she says deeper. They should stop bothering each other. What a childish point of view. Right? This is something you'd expect from a child. Like, will you guys just leave each other alone? Bobby, stop hitting Jimmy. And Jimmy, stop calling Bobby names. What's wrong with you kids? That's his perspective. This is an adult. Not just an adult who is a journalist in the political space. That's the level of his analysis. The Israelis and the Palestinians should stop bothering each other. Wow.
Is it not the case that the people of Gaza have been living under an occupation for 75 years since the Nakba in 1948, and that the people in the West Bank have also been living under apartheid conditions, hundreds of whom have been killed or captured by Israel since October 7th started, even though they have nothing to do with Hamas and are ruled by a completely different political authority?
Well,
let me see how he's going to completely deflect everything she just said. I know he cannot engage with what she just said. He cannot engage with what she just said. So whatever he's about to say is some kind of just trying to blow it off, deflection, whataboutism. It's gotta be. Let's see.
Is that part of or captured by Israel for 75 years since the Nakba in 1948, and that the people in the West Bank have also been living under apartheid conditions, hundreds of whom have been killed or captured by Israel since October 7th started, even though they have nothing to do with Hamas and are ruled by a completely different political authority?
Well,
is that
part of the picture for sure.
Right.
Notice the laugh starts with a laugh. Nothing she said is funny.
It's
not to stop bothering.
But it's not, okay, but
it's,
yes, but
it's
also
released from prison.
But the group they put in charge of their area is a terrorist group that has engaged in violence against the people in Israel.
The group that they put in charge of their area. I feel like this is an example when someone's saying something they know is nonsensical. You know, in that situation, you'll find a lot of odd word choices, right? The person they put in charge of their area. Like, who says that? Wow.
Which then justifies, or in the minds of Israel and the Israeli government, what they're doing. So it's a blood feud that will go, well, it's not right on either side. They should just stop fighting with each other.
So Israel should release.
They should just stop fighting with each other. They should just stop fighting with each other.
Palestinians from apartheid.
Or in the minds of Israel and the Israeli government, what they're doing. So it's a blood feud that will go, well, it's not right on either side. They should just stop fighting with each other.
So Israel should release Palestinians from apartheid. They should,
for sure, and the Palestinians should not.
Should be allowed.
And Hamas should surrender. And there's.
He says that for sure, but I'm pretty sure he won't initiate this demand or this desire. He's not the one going to be promoting, liberate the Palestinians. He won't say that. In an argument where he has a bad position, where he doesn't want his actual position to be known, in this moment he will say, yeah, they should not have them in apartheid or whatever he said, right? But he's not going to initiate this. Just like she said before, hollow.
Be no more. Well, it's not right on either side. They should just stop fighting with each other.
So Israel should release Palestinians from apartheid. They should,
for sure, and the Palestinians should not.
And they should be allowed.
And Hamas should surrender, and there should be no more violence.
And Palestinians should have equal rights within Israel, and not be subject to checkpoints. And they should have freedom to egress and to vote and to all of the things that people in these occupied territories don't
on
have
condition that they
to.
Stop engaging in violence against the Israelis. Like
the
if I hit you and then you hit me and then I hit you and then you hit me and we went on like this for.
The fact that he brings up this as an analogy just shows how ridiculous he is. To compare what's happening between Israel and the Palestinians as I hit you, you hit me, I hit you, you hit me. I mean, one of the fundamental issues with this analogy is the fact that that scenario sounds like an equal footing, right? If I'm punching you and you're punching me, I mean, clearly we both have an arm to punch with, so it's equal force. We're equals, right? I can hit you, you can hit me, but that's not the case, right? The IDF can absolutely devastate the Palestinians. The Palestinians, on the other hand, not so much.
1,000 years, eventually we'd say we should just stop doing this.
Right, but what's missing from that?
It wouldn't matter who did it first. It wouldn't matter who did it more bloodily.
It does matter.
Well, then we disagree.
But Robbie, it does matter because in your scenario, what if I locked you in a cage in my basement and then you hit me and I'm like, oh my God, I get to bomb Robbie in his cage? That's the scenario we're talking about here.
But what if you locked me in a cage because you feared for your life because I threw a rocket at you?
What are you talking about? There were
Locked me in a cage because
Palestinians. my basement, and then you hit me, and I'm like, oh my God, I get to bomb Robbie in his cage. That's the scenario we're talking about here.
But what if you locked me in a cage because you feared for your life because I threw a rocket at you?
What are you talking about? There were
Wow.
Palestinians living in the area in 1948, living their mind in a
All
pluralistic
right, you want to
society.
adjudicate this conflict forever? I just want it to end, but I know it's not going to because the people there want to fight it as militantly as you and the left do. So we'll watch.
I don't know. It's amazing to me that people can't see the difference between these two people. They can't see that this guy does not believe what he's saying. Right? This is a classic example of something I talk about a lot on my channel. He does not believe what he's saying. All of this, hands out, all this kind of fake gestures. He's pretending, right? Brianna, on the other hand, it's not about me agreeing with her. I can see that she has some strong convictions. So even if you disagree with her, right, at least she clearly believes what she's saying. So it's not about me agreeing with her. I'm specifically talking about the integrity, right? Not about her overall, right? I'm talking about in this conversation. You can see, like, she has a position. She's defending a position. And the things that she's saying are sensible. You can disagree with what she's saying, but you can't say that what she's saying is not sensible. But what he's saying is kind of childish, you know, oh, they should just stop hitting each other. Like, what? A grown-ass man. And his body language.
Robbie, people just don't want to live in an occupation.
Well,
they
can want what they want. What they're getting is death by the thousands, and I find it so disgusting. I wish Hamas had not done this, and that would not have caused the deaths of thousands of people.
What they're getting is death by the thousands. I find it so disgusting what Hamas did. Is Hamas killing thousands of Palestinians? Why would he connect the two? He says they're getting death by the thousands, and then he's condemning not the IDF who's doing it. He's condemning Hamas.
I'm horrified by the.
So no, keep living in apartheid.
This will just celebrate feudal violent resistance that gets thousands.
Look at this. Is just so fake. Well, okay, they should just stop fighting. They should just. I don't know. They're gonna fight forever. I don't know. Everyone should just leave each other alone.
Of children and women killed
Robbie,
is not something I can celebrate, even if I thought the cause was a great one.
Robbie,
I wouldn't advise that.
Robbie, do you know that hundreds of Palestinians were killed every year? Hundreds of Palestinians had been killed in Gaza prior to October 7th this year by the IDF.
Well, now we'll bring up the dozens that just died since we started having this conversation that did not have to die if this escalation of hostilities did not take place.
I'm talking about before October 7th. You're saying that it's also Palestinians' fault for just living their lives up until October 7th, for getting sniped off by the IDF. The Great March of Return in 2018. Was it they tried to peacefully protest?
It's just Palestinians' fault.
But they tried to peacefully protest by just walking next to the wall and saying we want to end the liberation. And for weeks, Palestinians sniped and shot and killed those peaceful protesters. Israelis sniped and shot and killed those protesters. So much so that there's a whole class of people who have below the waist amputations because of the behavior of the IDF when they tried these other ways.
I'm not in a position to adjudicate every dispute between these two peoples and these two regions, and I don't care. I wish the violence would end. I would be happy to reach any.
I'm just going to end this on that. He doesn't care. That is basically the argument that I've been making during this entire video. And there's Robbie himself, in his own words, agreeing with me that Robbie does not care about the civilians being killed. He will fake condemn it if challenged. He's not going to focus on it. He's not going to bring it up. He's never going to complain like, what about this? What's happened to the civilians? He's not going to say that. He's going to keep talking about something from months ago at this point, right? And the reason why is because I would guess he neither cares about the civilians killed on October 7th or the ones killed since. None of this really matters to Robbie at all. That's the impression that I get, but I could be wrong. What impression do you get? This is the Debate Me channel. Debate Me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Robbie doesn't care. So says Robbie.